Monica.
First thing being the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah,
Could I just get Jessica, could I get your email address so I can send you the minutes from tonight and the future stuff?
Me, Jessica?
Yeah.
I'll just put my email address in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can, if not, that's okay. Okay, thank you.
all set, Monica?
Yep, I'm all set.
Okay, if everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance so we can get started. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Tonight, we are joined by the Board of Education, the board, and as well as the superintendent and the assistant superintendent to talk about the 21-22 budget, as we have been doing with all the other departments. I'm not sure. I guess, Mike, will you be doing the presenting?
I will not. I think Ms. Harmeling will start the presentation, and Mrs. Holmes, myself, and Mrs. Tenza will be here if there's any questions or anything that we can help answer.
Okay. That's fine. Kristen, if you're on, oh, I see you're on. I will turn it over to you. So if you'd like to introduce yourself to our board.
Sure, gladly.
And start
Thank you.
whenever you'd like.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Harmeling. I've been on the Board of Education for 9 years. I was previously on the Board of Finance with Mr. Sawicki for 2 years. And in my capacity on the board, I am the chairman of our Finance Committee meeting. So I do see some new faces. So just real quickly, as you guys know, the superintendent presents a budget to the Board of Ed. The Board of Education adopts the budget. And then we go through this process with you all, which definitely includes some changes along the way. So this year, our budget is coming in at a 2.55% increase. And before I turn it over to Mrs. Holmes for the specifics, I want to just say that reflective of a conversation we had with the board, we know that there's a lot of things in flux this year. We know that there is grant money that will be coming down from the state. The information from the state is brand new, literally not even 2 weeks old. So to the best of my knowledge, we have not had that conversation, or the central office has not had the conversation yet about where those funds will be allocated. Right now, we understand those funds to be made available both this school year as well as next school year. So I do anticipate some changes in our line item amounts, but for purposes of tonight's meeting, we provided with you our best estimate of what our needs are for the coming year. That does include a few additional items, particularly a new position for a floating nurse, because we feel like in the pandemic, our schools cannot be cut shorthanded. And whenever pre-pandemic, we would have a nurse out, it meant that school went without a nurse, and that just can't be the case during the pandemic. And we anticipate lingering effects moving through next year, where people will be on heightened alert with who knows what mitigation strategies, et cetera. So with that bit of a preamble, I will turn it over to Mrs. Holmes, and she can talk about the specific numbers.
Good evening.
Chris, before you do, just a question. With the unknown of the state grants that are the potential, your budget, does it include any effect of them, or no effect because you're not sure what the numbers are?
It's no effect at all. We actually do have the number that Seymour is supposed to get, but all that money would need to be applied for. So it needs to be still well thought out and planned against the current and the next school year. So the budget you're looking at does not take into account any of the grant money.
Okay.
Okay,
And the estimate of that amount would be, just for information?
Um,
$1,019,026.
Wow,
as I
pretty
mentioned, Mr.
precise. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
no, that's,
That's
And
what we
as I-
have from the
Yeah.
state.
And as I mentioned, that is for
okay.
the
No,
current
that's fine.
school year, and it
Just
can,
so we have an idea.
yeah. I do want to
Right.
point out, though, that as I
So
mentioned,
that's, so when you say,
go ahead, Bill.
so, no, so we're looking, that $1 million is for the 2021 year we're in now, and some overlap of whatever's unspent into the next year?
Yes,
Well, could I clarify? It's not just whatever's
Sure.
not spent this year that can be carried over. It's grant money that's available to us for the next year and a half. So in collaboration with central office, we will be working as a board to put together a plan on when that money ought to be sent. So for example, one thing that comes to my mind personally, and again, this has not been vetted with the board yet, is that we're going to have a lot of learning loss to deal with in our next school year. So we certainly wouldn't want to front load the spending of that money, because we will have to doing things for our students and families in the 2020, the school year after that. So
And
we
that
need to-
grant money-
So this is, so pretty much the million, so pretty much the $1 million spans what we're in now and the next budget year, but
Correct.
not how much, but we don't know yet how much for each year. Is that a good statement, I guess? Fair?
the total grant must be spent by September 2023 is what we have, the information that we have.
Okay.
In other words,
All right.
Bill, the way we understand it is that it's up to us as to when we spend that money and on what,
Okay.
of course, across allowable expenses, of course, but it's not like the state's going to tell us we have to spend X percentage in any given time period.
Correct.
Okay. So we've got a grant we got $1 million that can span multiple years, this
Yes.
year and a couple more years.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. No, that's fair. All right.
All right. Good evening. As was said, our budget increase is 2.55%, which equates to a dollar amount increase of $882,568. The main drivers attributing to this increase are health insurance and contractual obligations with salaries and benefits. And in terms of new items for this budget 21-22 school year, you heard that we put in for a nurse floater position. This person will provide district coverage whenever one of our nurses are out, and will be rotating through the 4 buildings, helping out the nursing staff. The next item is a special education teacher at Seymour High School. This position is needed to meet the learning needs of our students that are going to the high school from the middle school. So they're transitioning up to the high school. 2 instructional paraprofessionals at Seymour High School. Once again, the same kind of things. They need to follow the students into the high school. Then our mathematics resources for our students in grades K through 5. These resources are needed in order to support the implementation of the curriculum. We're increasing a music position from 0.4 to 0.8 at the Seymour High School. This position is needed to assist with teaching more music electives, as well as to allow dual certified teachers to teach other subject areas that are needed. And we have a 0.4 FTE ELA teacher at Seymour High School. This position is needed to instruct ELA classes in order to help keep our class sizes down, as well as to continue to offer more ELA electives to our students.
Now, ELA stands for what?
English learners
English language arts, yeah.
in the language
Language
arts.
arts?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Okay, in your packet, we also gave you part of our budget document, management summary, taking you through the different account codes and basically giving you the more detailed version of each classification of account codes. After that, there is a detailed, well, actually a summary of our Board of Ed proposed budget for 21-22, which gives us the amount below. We're going for 21-22 is 35,552,977, which there's the increase that I indicated, and the percentages is 2.5%. Behind that, we detail it out by building and cost center. There's also a spreadsheet that we use to figure out the healthcare cost calculations. The rate we are using is 9.5% increase on the health insurance rates. After that, there's a detailed spreadsheet followed by grant salaries and each building on what the salaries are for high school, middle school, Bungie, and CLS. Attached to that packet is the individual line items that are broken down even finer to include professional services budget detail, the infrastructure services budget detail. Each one has account code attached to it and detailed items that we charge to those different accounts. There's also account 431, which is building repairs and maintenance. Transportation budget detail and communications budget detail also follows. The tuition budget detail, which gives you all of our outplacements and the tuition amounts and excess cost grant amounts associated with them. And I believe lastly is the equipment budget detail sheet. The very last few pages speak to our historical enrollment here in Seymour. And then we have the elementary projected class size for 21-22 for the elementary, and then the projected figures for 6 through 12. And with that, I'll open it up for discussion and any questions that you may have.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say, Mr. Zawicki, and thank you, Sherry.
Like you were about to say something.
I am. No, I am. So what I wanted just to, kind of make it streamline, what Mrs. Holmes had shared, the original list was a list of 9 items, new items for next year. And our board did a wonderful job working with our team of administrators to say, hey, what can we do and what can't we do, knowing that we're all under fiscal constraints. So that list of 9 items that was originally asked for got cut down to the 3 items that we think and we know are essential to moving our district forward and to moving our learners forward. So the items that Mrs. Holmes shared with you, those 3 items that are quote unquote new in our budget, are the only 3 items being asked for that we feel as a team of administrators are needed to move our students and to move the district forward. So I wanted just to kind of put it into some context where we were higher, we worked together, we trimmed it, and we trimmed it down to, I don't want to say bare bones. I hate using that expression, but it is bare bones and minimum with the items that we need to move the district forward. So I know that you've appreciated that kind of context before, Mr. Zawicki. So I just wanted to give you, just in terms of context and procedure as to where we've been through the process. And that's what Sherry just articulated to the board. So I didn't want to jump in, but I just wanted everyone to understand where we started to where we are. And that's kudos to all the hard work of the team of administrators as well as our Board of Education members. So I just wanted everyone to kind of be on the same page. And then, as Sherry said, any questions, she'd be more than happy to answer, as would Vonda, myself, and any of the board members that might be on as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, no, thank you. We appreciate the clarity. Someone else thought was, and I didn't want to cut anybody off. Well, are there any questions on any of the items or whatever for either Ms. Harmeling, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Holmes, anybody connected to the board at all?
I have a question. Richard Demko. So in regards to
Yep, I was gonna say, because not everyone knows you.
Richard Demko, in regards to the music position at the high school, are you looking to increase musical education, or is this to supplement somebody else that's leaving, or what exactly will this particular music teacher's function be? And this is to anyone who wants to answer that.
Sure. So it's twofold. The increase of the part-time music position to increase that person again to almost double what they were doing allows us to continue offering our array of music classes for our students while also using the dual certified. We have some music teachers that are dual certified, and in order to use them whenever there's an opening in their schedule to teach a different subject, that's the whole purpose. So having that person in to absorb those classes, to continue offer a full variety and array, as well as to utilize some of the other people we have. It's just a better use of our staffing in terms of, they'll teach music, but they'll also teach some other classes that they're certified in. So that position is needed so to allow us to continue to offer the array that we have, to continue to build our music program, while also to sustain our classes in other core content areas.
Okay, so that then is not going to open up extra curriculum. It's just going to keep basically the status quo and allow you to make staffing.
That's correct for this year. Obviously, trying to keep the number as low as we could and to keep offering as many courses as we could. We couldn't go in and offer a whole lot more, but we do have a robust music program. We'd love to see it expand. Obviously, the arts are very important to everybody, but in order for us to keep the array of courses that we have in both the arts and in our content area, this was the best way to do it while keeping the numbers as manageable as possible.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, one more quick question while we're on the subject of music and music teachers. Has there been any discussion in regards to implementing a high school band program yet? I know this is something that I typically ask every single year, and it does seem a little bit odd that, we're one of the few towns in the area that have a high school marching band.
So we've talked about that, and they do that in terms of an interest survey. Right now, the interest has not necessarily been there per se, but we do know that our music program has really shown an increase from our elementary levels through our middle school, and obviously that will filter into the high school. So it's never a dead issue, if you will. It's something that our high school administration is aware of, and thank you for continuing to ask. It's just that the interest level is not right there currently for us to have a band, and obviously with a band comes some more costs, obviously with uniforms and instruments and things of that nature and stipended positions. But for right now, it's more of an interest right now compared to, not that they don't want to do it, So it's always something that they talk about, but really it's gauged by an interest survey. And I know they'll continue to seek interest. If there is, we would bring it to our board and obviously take it up with our board and see if they would support something of that nature. But as of right now, we haven't brought it to our board because that interest has not been there and has not been brought up by our team of administrators as a strong interest at our secondary level.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, anyone else for anyone on the Board of Ed? I have a couple things, but I can hold off till the end. Bev or Jim? I can't see you on my
I'm-
screen, but,
No, I'm good.
okay.
I have no questions, Bill.
Okay, Jim? All right, thank you. Zani, you I can see. I don't know if you have any questions or not. Yeah, I got a thumbs up. I guess he's happy with it. I've got a couple questions in regards to employee benefits. It's a pretty sizable jump, about $73,000. And I noticed in the explanation under it, Social Security, Medicare, contractual MRF, which is always a fun contribution to make, and lump sum to 4 retiring teachers. Are those lump sum? Are those really lump sum, or are they paid out over a 3-year period, 2-year period, a 4-year period? Because it's just, I mean, obviously it's a 40% bump in retiree benefits. That's you've got in the detail line on. I'm just trying to get my arms around, such a big increase for, I guess a small population. I think maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it's
I'll
a combination.
Pass it out to
of
Sherry
things,
or
if you
Mike or
would.
whomever.
I can answer that. Sherry Holmes, business manager.
Okay.
It's a combination. On our spreadsheet, we have some people that are getting increments paid out each fiscal year. And then there are some lump sum payments of the ones that are retiring. I believe the increments are left over from when we did an early retirement incentive, and they were spread across different fiscal years. So some of them are dropping off, and then others are being added as one lump sum payment as they retire. And as long as they notify us before January 1st by contract, they do get that in that fiscal year that we're budgeting for. So it's a variety.
Are these benefits assumed? Okay, I don't remember the answer, but I know you all will know. Are there payouts for accumulated sick time? Teachers, or is it just
It's
you can build up
longevity.
15 days a year up to a cap?
Yeah, it's up to a
I'm
certain
sorry,
cap.
what?
And up to a certain cap, over 170 sick days, I believe the contract says. And it's a long-term longevity incentive retirement payment.
So if a teacher has 169 days and they retire, they get nothing for that? They would have to get
Hold
the
on,
excess over 170
Let
days?
me pull up my document with the
Okay,
language right on there from the contract itself.
okay.
Let's see. In that way. Is the retirement.
Because I've seen it through, working on different municipalities. Some will have anything over, let's say, 180 days, the teacher would get half of the excess days over 180. There are others that pay from day one, and you can build up to, I know there was one municipality I worked on that it was like unlimited. So effectively it was like a savings account. And there's some that have it in lieu of getting paid your accumulated sick time, you can get a flat X dollars payable over so many
Right.
years.
So what it
So there's
is in the
various
contract
combinations on themes.
is a retirement longevity payment is based upon the total accumulated sick days, which are currently in excess of 170 days. So we look at what the level of accumulated sick days that they have and determine what that is. And then we pay them over 5 months, 3 months, depending on, what their situation is. 75.
So they
sick
get
days
anything
equal-
over the 170 days.
Right. Like for example, 75 sick days, 3 months salary. 150 sick days equals 4 months salary. And 170 sick days is 5 months salary. And that's what is calculated based on the calculation that we do over the 170. And then over the 150, and then over the 75. So it's a calculation.
No, I know that. So really, it depends. So if a teacher has 75 sick days, they're going to get a certain percentage of their salary. If they have 150 sick days, they're going to get a certain percentage. And if they have 170 days, they're going to get a certain percentage.
5 months of their
If
salary.
I'm understanding it.
Yeah,
So then
5 months of their
and anything
salary.
over 100. Okay, so then if someone had 200 sick days, they're only getting up to 170 days worth of their salary.
Over
If I'm understanding
excess
it.
of 170 days. Sick days. So if they have more, then they have more, but that's the calculation that we have to use by contract of the amount of days.
So
to
they're only
determine.
getting paid up to 170 accumulated days.
Correct.
That's fine. Okay. Now, and that's payable in over 2 years, 1 year. They get a check when they walk out the door the last day.
It's paid by August 1st, following retirement. So it would
Okay, so
be
somebody
like
gives you the notice.
before January 1st, they will give us the
Yep.
notice that they're retiring. And then on August 1st, 2021, they will get their lump sum payment paid out to them.
They'll get their check. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you've got four teachers that are going to be getting lump sum checks, according to the explanation
Yes.
for the budget longevity costs and the lump sum payments for 4. Okay.
That's 4. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
And is that the only type of longevity payment that they get? Or is there any other stipends, sweeteners, or whatever to make someone retire so someone else can be brought in at a lower rate?
We do have an option in the contract to do an early retirement incentive, which we can do that.
Okay.
So in this contract year, we have that option that we may do that in order to entice more people to retire.
All right. So of the four people that are, you've got 4 lump sums, and in looking at the salary, you've got, according, looks like 5 people are retiring, and you're paying
There's
out
5,
4,
but
because I'm just looking, 1 full-time elementary. Pardon?
there's one that is not receiving a payout.
Okay,
So we
that's
have
fine.
1, 2, 3, 4,
So that's what,
5.
that's,
but only 4 are receiving that payout.
Okay. All right. Another question I had, I know, and this is more informational, I guess, than anything else for my own edification. We, COVID started back February, March, whatever.
March.
Our system, like anybody else's, went to remote, et cetera, and closed down. The transportation services, were we still liable to pay under those contracts, even though we didn't? I would say there was no bus service, unless I'm wrong, and there was. I'm just, for my own information, were we still on the hook to pay for the bus contract or anything like that?
We are negotiating with the transportation company, and they have given us,
Okay.
they're due to give us a credit on that for the time that the buses were idle. And then, now that they're in order, we'll continue to pay. And if we do have to, at any point, use less of a service, they're willing to sit down and negotiate overall the contract. We did that last year with them. We negotiated a side agreement, so they gave us a amount of money that we saved in the overall contract, transportation contract last year.
So in looking just at your detail, you've got up through December 31, year-to-date actual is obviously 290,000 with a budget of 900,000. So I'm guessing, and just as a seat of the pants amount, we've paid about, say, $300,000 through the end of December for about 4 months or whatever of the school year. Do you have a best guesstimate of what it's going to end up at for the current school year we're in that ends in June? What that
For the
transportation line
regular-
item is going to be?
For the regular
Yeah,
ed or all of it? I mean,
No, I think the regular ed is the most common, because I know special ed is its own animal and things like that. But just in terms of, you got $1 million, you've spent, if you look at it globally, you spent $562,000 at the end of December on a budget of $1.8 million. And what is that? Whether you want to look at it globally or just regular or whatever's easier, and I'm not holding anybody to numbers, I just want to get an idea. Does that $1.8 million, what's your best guess as to what that'll end up at?
pretty close. Right now, we are receiving, we're still continuing to receive the bills. I will tell you that they were behind in their billing because of COVID, and they shut down and they lost a person who did the billing. So they're sending us the invoices right now, and we are paying them as we speak. So that will be reflected in the months to come. Like February,
Okay.
we will pay some, and then January, we did pay some more when they sent it to us. As far as special ed education goes, that is a moving target always. I expect to spend all what we have budgeted for there. As far as the, let's see, the activities, that's probably not going to be spent as much, as you know, because we don't have any trips going out, for sports and whatnot. So that will be probably left over there as well. So
So,
I'm guessing that we're gonna be pretty close. I'm not anticipating it going over, but we will be pretty close.
so if we write, so let's say we hit that budget number and we end up paying them 1,888,000 or whatever that the number is on the piece of paper. What are they talking about in terms of a credit that may flow into this current year's budget?
Right now, we received $15,000 for the time that, we just received that, matter of fact, for the time that the buses were idle. And then, we still continue to, use our buses for the other trips, the special needs students, outplacements, things like that. So we were still being billed as, you know, it was still coming in and we were being billed for those trips.
And the trips were happening, the kids were going to where they
Yeah,
were
wherever they were
scheduled to go to?
outplaced, yes, wherever they were outplaced, they
Okay.
were being transported.
So I guess what I'm having just trying to wrap my arms around is in the regular transportation vein. We know schools were closed, it was remote learning, things have started to uptick again. The snowstorms notwithstanding, obviously, but things are starting to uptick. And I'm guessing, I just would find it hard to believe that, let's say by the end of this June, we would end up paying $900,000 for buses, and we've gotten $15,000 so far, and that's it. I mean,
We're still
Chris-
negotiating
Chris,
with
you
them
you see,
and
you got your hand up?
we're utilizing the buses. So as, you know, as we ramp up and go back to, or try to go back to the full transportation schedule, things are going to be monitored and looked at, and I will be working very closely with the operations manager to see if there's additional money that can be given back to us, to the point that we might be negotiating, like we did last year, which is a side agreement to the overall contract. What is driving these numbers are encumbrances. So I have to take the encumbrances and disencumber the amount of money that I successfully negotiate with the transportation company. And my hope is that we negotiate down.
Well, I mean, yeah, no one wants to negotiate up, at least no
Right.
one on this call, I can say. But,
Exactly.
one of the things I think that can, from my perspective, of getting some sort of credit that can apply to this year's, the new budget's transportation costs based off of, I don't know, let's call it lack of activity in the year we're sitting in. And I think it would behoove everybody, since we're all on the same team with this, that whatever types of deals or credits or whatever is negotiated, we know about it. Because anywhere we can look to, save some money, it's a plus. Chris, I see you got your hand up.
I understand.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so a couple of things there. Yeah, there's, I mean, Bill, you're 100% right. We ask every month that we have a finance committee meeting, we talk about things like existing contracts and is there going to be a give back. The thing to keep in mind with the buses, though, is that even though we've been on hybrid, we're still running the full fleet every day. It's just that the bus is picking up only half amount of students. So there's really only a credit in play for when we were on full distance learning. But you will see other areas in our budget where we very well may be in a surplus position. So it's not just bus transportation, it's also the substitute teacher line. The reason that we were not comfortable sort of lowering those lines for this budget year to kind of develop how much we might have in surplus or might not have in surplus is because we still don't have our special education excess cost grant in for the first payment. So as I know you know, Bill, occasionally, often, we don't get back what we think we're going to get from the state, and we have to rejigger our budget and do some line item transfers to account for the shortfall in what we had expected to get for special education. So once that first grant comes in, we'll be in a better position to be more realistic about some of the line items, but we just were not comfortable making those adjustments at this point in the game and saying, hey, we think we're going to have X amount of dollars left over in specific items. We'll get there at some point in the year. We're just not there yet, especially because that first education cost sharing grant, excess cost share, has not come in yet. But we will keep you up to date absolutely on that because we check in every month.
In February, we will be receiving
the end
that
of
payment.
February,
February
yeah, you'll be
28th,
getting the first check.
we have the first check.
Yep.
And then I'm also working on a projection, which will include some of these other items that we anticipate savings to be had. With the increased invoices coming in now, I have a better handle on what that's going to look like. And that will be put together and discussed at our next fiscal meeting in March.
Yeah, to Chris's point and what you had just said, Sherry, I think given a lot of moving pieces, not only in your budget, but in the town's budget as well, we want to be able to sharpen our pencil as best we can. And we know some things are unavoidable. We have to estimate as best we can. But where there are areas where we have something that we can point to that looks promising, whether it be a bus credit or however much the excess cost grant is going to come in at, or anything like that, even this, this $1 million state grant, which we understand can be spread over however, multiple years. I think it's important we get some kind of handle. And even to the point, if quite honestly, if you have some sort of target on that $1,019,000 that you're looking at, well, and I'm just making up numbers now, 300,000 this year, 400 in the next budget, 400 after, or whatever the math would work out. I think it's incumbent upon you to keep us in the loop and let us know. Because
Well,
if
of
anything
course,
can
and
get supplemented out of your budget.
Like we said,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
this grant is really new, out of the box, Friday. We have not a lot of
Understood.
time to plan things, which we are going to plan things. Now, this grant for $1,019,000 must be used on expenditures for COVID-19 related. The state is well aware that municipalities are targeting this money and trying to use it to reduce our budgets. And we were told to caution them because we do have a minimum budget requirement. And, that's not, something that we need to be able to address at this time. I mean, we're going to plan, we're going to meet together, and we're going to come up with a plan to spend the money effectively, but it's all has to do with COVID related, spending it for the students who have lost learning over these last few months. Also, remote learning, any technology upgrades that we need to get to enhance learning. Those are the kind of things that they are anticipating us spending that money on. As far as a credit for transportation, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what next year is going to look like. I'd like to be able to say, yeah, we're gonna save X and be rock solid with that. But I don't know anybody that has a handle on that particular amount of money that they could save or not save for next year. We are in the last year
Oh,
of
and
the
I-
contract
And I,
for the All-Star Transportation. I just want to let you know, we will be going out to bid. You know, we are in the final year next year. And that always brings savings there when you go out to bid and take a look at other vendors. But that will be for the
I,
coming budget.
I get all that. And-
Okay,
But what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, wherever down the path, because fortunately it's only February 8th.
mhm,
And we do have some time and some leeway in terms of developing all these numbers, whether it's yours, the police department's, public works, whomever's.
correct,
And any type of direction or plan or thought or reasonable estimation process for amounts, credits, whatever you want to call it, grant funds, I think has to be factored in.
mhm,
And I get it that there's nothing, no one's got the crystal ball, because if someone did, we'd probably just all pitch in and buy lotto tickets. But absent that, I think what we want to do is get as reasonable and at a best guess as we can.
right,
At
I
this
understand.
point, based on what we know, because I would think throughout the budget for the 21-22 year, there are COVID items in there, technology items for it, et cetera, which does not defeat the purpose of whatever the intention of the state is for the extra money. And what we're trying to do from our perspective is match up. If there's, and I'm just gonna make up numbers, if there's $50,000 worth of technology COVID related in the 21-22 budget, but there's a grant sitting over here for, that can cover that, okay, that's a plus for the town in general. So all I'm saying at this point, because no one knows and you're still in your estimation processes, and we get it, is that what we want to do is, let's say, stay in touch, for lack of a better descriptor, and to get an idea as to what your processes are looking like and what you
Right.
think you're estimating. The excess cost grants coming in at the end of the month. The second piece you're not going to see till May, and that will be past our budget time. But at least as best we can know what we know, to be able to make some decisions on the budget. We know health insurance is 9.5%. When we had our little budget summit, Mike was there, myself, Anne Marie, the department heads, we got our fingers crossed on 9.5%.
Right,
If that works, home run. If it doesn't, then obviously
right,
your budget isn't the only get adjusted. But I think we should stay in contact, and we should be able to follow along, let's call it the estimation process and the
Right.
matching process of COVID in the 21-22 budget with the grant that's expected to come in. I think that, works the best for everybody.
right. And like I said, I'll be working on that projection, and there's a few other items that
Okay.
I anticipate savings, and then bus fuel is one of them that's related to transportation. I expect that we'll have a savings in there. In heating fuel, I expect we're gonna have somewhat of savings there. And hopefully we keep anticipating, but it doesn't get delivered, but electricity, it would be nice to know if we can eventually see a savings there as well. I'm hopeful. I don't know. It could happen, and I'm told it could happen. I just don't know when. It's all up to Johnson and control.
Well,
Johnson,
and,
I guess.
and we've, I've had this discussion on the town side.
Right.
I've mentioned it to Mike during the budget summits and things.
Mhm.
And you're right. And I've asked for information from our, let's call it our project manager,
I
I
know.
guess related to
yeah.
Johnson, and you got the stuff going up on the roof of the high school and things like that. And I'm looking, hopefully for our meeting at the end of this month, we're gonna have some ideas and some numbers.
Right.
Because the Johnson project is now probably about a year and a half into it. Understood there's, different issues and holdups here or there in the weather, and I get that. But I think as I mentioned to Tim, on the buildings group, that
Mhm.
by now we're far enough into it that somebody should have some kind of numbers and some kind of an idea. Because we can't
I would
fly
think so,
blind
yeah.
for this whole thing.
Right.
And that only works for the betterment of everybody on this call, what we're trying to do. Okay.
Correct.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah, Rich, go ahead.
quick question. Actually, it's more than just a question. So going back to the COVID relief grant, okay, is there a way that we can get a detailed list of things that constitutes COVID relief spending or COVID type spending? Because that's one thing that I just really doesn't really sit right, because you went back and as Ms. Holmes said that, when they received the grant, they got a list of things that they want to do. And what I don't want is that money be used to be just going on a spending spree with. I would like to see that it is tied to some of the things in the budget that's already in existence. I would like to know exactly what constitutes a COVID expenditure, so to speak, so that way we compile a list of what the state says is acceptable, compare your budget, and use some of that to offset it. That's what I would like to see. I mean, is it possible if we can get
Well,
some data on?
I could, please.
There is a document that we can share with you.
Okay, yes, I would be very interested to see that, because I'm, I would like to say that there are probably a few things in the budget that would be qualifying of using money.
Can I interrupt, please?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Kristen. So two things, Rich. We have the list of what last year's, the first COVID relief budget grant was given for. We have a list of what that money was spent on, and we can absolutely be sharing that with you. In terms of this year, so the idea is not to take the grant money and supplant operational money. But where we can and where it makes sense to do, we will do so. And that'll be something that we discuss as a board with central office administration. So when those numbers are more solid and when we know what we've got going on in our accounts to a more definitive degree, we will be looking to see what can be purchased for that is because of COVID. But I would not anticipate thinking, okay, we can take this $100,000 of technology money that we need for the next school year and use the COVID money for that, because that's really not what the money is intended for. So I hear what you're saying, and we will be working collaboratively as a board through the next several months on planning that out.
Well, see, for me, I mean, that's fine, but if the money is supposed to be used for COVID expenditures, for me, it's why not actually use it to offset some of the things in the budget?
Because that's not what the money's for. The money is
Yeah,
to
can't do
offset
that.
COVID expenditures. That's what the money for is every grant we always get comes with the statement of this is not supposed to supplant money that your municipality is given, because if that was the case, quite frankly, they would have given the money to the municipality, but they're giving it to the school district because the school has special needs and we have to use that money for that. But as I said, anything that we see in the budget that we can say, you know what, we don't have enough money for that this year. We would have lost that money. So can we make up for that using the COVID money? So it's a little bit of a dance, but that money is not supposed to supplant. And in fact, it can't supplant the operating budget of the schools. That's why it was given to the town.
Go ahead, Bill.
I get the statutorily
Yeah.
statutory requirement of supplement, not supplant. I mean, I see that a whole bunch in what I do for a living.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we want to look at is just to get an idea of where it's, I mean, obviously, yeah, let's knock your budget down $1 million because you're going to get $1 million. That's
Correct, right.
ridiculous.
Doesn't work.
And I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
But I think where there can be a reasonable estimation and a plan, I mean, I think that's what we're all driving for.
Totally agree with you,
And
Bill.
I get it, because if you supplant money, then that opens up the door to the state to come in. And,
Right.
you know, if they wanted to, and I've seen it in some cases where the state can be a real stinker and take money away. And
Correct.
we don't want to cross that path. But I just think that a good hard look at things can benefit the town and the Board of Ed. And I
Yeah,
think
I
we can put
absolutely
that
agree.
together
do
and,
we all.
you know,
Yep.
fingers crossed it works out.
Yep, agree.
Okay.
No, I also get that whole thing as well. However, you are asking in this budget for an additional floating nurse, which was specifically stated in the beginning that it was, needed, and it would be good to have around with the state of the pandemic and whatnot. I mean, so that to me wouldn't be something that, that would be a new request. That would some of that money be able to be used to offset that position? Because that's not already written in the budget. It's a new request.
Yeah, but notice I did actually say that was a need that we had before the pandemic. And before the pandemic, anytime we had a nurse call in sick, that school was without a nurse, which is never a good idea, whether we're in a pandemic or not. So to your point, yes, Rich, that would be something that would qualify most certainly, and it wouldn't be supplanting, but then we would be left adding it to a subsequent year budget. But something like that is absolutely on the table.
Okay. I was just,
If I could jump in, I did ask that question of the state. Kathy Dempsey, who's in charge of this grant. I asked her if we could put a nurse floater through this grant and use some of that money. And she said, no, because it looks too much like what you needed in the past and you never put it into place. You know, we don't have nurse subs. We have to contract out for nurse subs. And she said, it sounds like a position you would have put in your previous budget and not use COVID-19 funds for. So she's not inclined to approve an expenditure like that because she sees that as something that we should be doing already in our budget.
Well,
So-
all right, well then there's that.
Well,
You asked me to ask, and I did pose that question. And I wasn't the only one either. There were other districts too.
I think for purposes of this exercise this evening, I think we're all on the same page of where we want to end up.
Right.
And I think between looking at your estimation process, some, bus credits, perhaps this grant to some reasonable extent, if there is COVID in the 21-22 budget, all of that rolled together. I think that hopefully gets us a little bit where we want to go. And I think we're too early in the game in terms of saying, well, you want this, but we're only giving you that. Much too early to make a definite decision. We don't have all the information, and it sounds like through your processes and meetings and figuring things out, you don't have it all either. So I think that's probably, where we want to go with this is, since we're, roughly a little less than 2 months out from having to really lock these numbers away, I think what we want to do is round up information, and from the Board of Finance's perspective, sharing information that if we can get from the Board of Ed. to get an idea on the numbers, to see what and where these savings might be, because I've got to believe there's some. And that'll be a driver of a decision. I mean, I think that's the fairest way to say it, because no one can predict the state of Connecticut. God knows I can't, and I've worked with them too many years. And
Yeah.
you know, this way we'll all know, and we'll all be on the same page without having to figure, well, what if, well, did we think about that? Did we think about that? Whatever. So I think that's probably where we want to leave this, if there are no other questions. And I'm sure we're going to be in contact, and we're going to be talking again.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that.
We'll be here.
Okay.
Anything else for anybody on the board, or of me or Anne Marie or anybody else? Oh, okay. Well, it's not a meeting, so we don't need a motion to adjourn, but thanks everybody for coming. We've already known that it's remote tomorrow because of the snow. So
Yeah.
it gives me an excuse to stay inside. And we'll look forward to chatting again. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Bill.
very much.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Stay safe. Stay
You
safe,
too.
everybody.
You too.